Good evening. Happy Thursday. This is your girl Dawn with Life Insurance 101 coming back to you guys with another video. So today what I want to talk to you guys about is the realities of life insurance. And when I say the realities of life insurance, I mean being realistic with yourself when it comes to trying to find a policy. And this is very, very important because I talk to people on a regular basis, and they'll say things like, I want $1 million policy, but I only want to pay $50 a month, and they have a ton of health issues, or they want $1 million policy, but they're already like 40, 50 years old, but they only want to pay like $250 a month. Like, we have to be realistic and be willing to sit down and have a serious conversation about life insurance and about our expectations. And we have to be ready to hear those financial numbers when we're asking for certain kind of policies. If you want to leave your family $1 million policy, and you want to make sure that you have that coverage for as long as you're alive, then you are going to have to be willing to fund that kind of policy. So I say that because, people get sticker shock when we tell them, well, okay, so you're 50 years old, you want $1 million policy, it's going to cost you about $650 a month. And people get sticker shock. So this is what I'm saying. You guys have to be realistic, and you have to sit down with us and have these open conversations and listen to what we, the experts, are telling you about how much this stuff is going to cost. There's different ways that we can get you to your goal, but you have to be open-minded, or you have to adjust what your goal actually is. So, and I say that, like I said, because I've talked to numerous people, and they weren't expecting to hear that amount that they were told, but they're already a little bit up in age, and they have this preset notion of, well, I only want to pay this much a month. Well, okay, if you only want to pay this much a month, this is the amount of life insurance you can get for that amount. So what we do when we help people figure out what is the best policy for them is we do what's called a financial needs analysis. So we look at your overall picture as far as what your current health situation is, what kind of medicines you're on, what your age is, how much debt you have, how much assets you have, and then that gives us the kind of the big picture as to what you should be, the amount of coverage you actually need to leave behind. So this is what you guys need to look at and be mindful of when you start thinking about how much coverage do I really need. And then you need to look at your financial situation and say, okay, is my financial situation going to allow me to get this amount of coverage? So that's where the realities comes in when it comes to life insurance. And so here's some things for you guys to know. Your age, sex, and health, and whether or not you smoke cigarettes play a huge part in how much you're going to be paying for your life insurance. So the younger and healthier you are when you get a policy, the less expensive it's going to be. And if you do not smoke cigarettes, the less expensive it's going to be. And unfortunately, for males, females, we're going to pay a lower rate because we have a higher mortality rate. We live longer than you guys. And we tend to be generally healthier, so to speak, according to the medical industry, than you guys. So our policies are cheaper than your policies. So these are, like I said, these are some things that you guys need to keep in mind when you sit down and you start having this conversation about life insurance. You need to keep in mind your age, your health, your weight. All of those things play a huge factor into how much coverage you can actually get. Now, the one thing I always tell people is, at the very least, if you can't get the policy you want at this moment, because of some health issues, because of financial issues, or whatever, it's always better to at least get a small policy and put that in place. It's like a $25,000 policy, because at the very least, that would give your family some financial leeway when it comes time to bury you. Not if they have to bury you, because the reality is, yes, we are all going to die one day. And I know that is a very grim subject. It's a very grim thought, but it is an absolute reality. That is the one reality we cannot escape, and that is that we are all going to die one day. So let's get our financial situations with life insurance in order, so that when that time comes, that is one less thing our families have to worry about. They will not have that burden of, where are we going to come up with this money to bury our loved one? And as it stands right now, the average American has less than $500 in their savings account. The average funeral is between $12,000 to $25,000, depending on where you live. But the average across the United States, and that's in 2018. I'm talking 2018 rates. The average is between $12,000 to $25,000. So if you know that the average person has less than $500 in their bank account, that should say, you know what, let me at least get this small policy in place now, so that, if something happens to me before I become more financially stable and can get a bigger policy, at least I know my family will not struggle financially with trying to bury me. We see, GoFundMes, we see car washes, we see people standing out on street corners asking for donations. And these things can be easily avoided if we do the very minimum of putting at least a $25,000 policy in place. That's the bare minimum, and then depending on your age, 10,000, 20,000, whatever the case may be, for an affordable policy, depending on your financial situation. But at the very least, we should have something in place so that our families won't have to struggle financially when the time comes. I see it all the time. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I see it all the time driving around this city. I see people standing out on street corners with signs asking for donations. I see car wash signs. I see GoFundMes coming across my screen on a regular basis on Facebook. And it saddens me, because I'm in the industry and I know the truth about the cost of life insurance. I know that it's very inexpensive. And I know that if we as families would start having this conversation more often, and being proactive about having this conversation, we won't have to worry about the reactive side with trying to scramble together to get a large lump sum of money to bury somebody. So we need to be more proactive within the Black community, especially. So today's message, though, is really about the realities of life insurance. So again, if like I said, you want to keep in mind that you pay for life insurance with cash, but you buy it with age, sex, and health, and whether or not you smoke cigarettes. So keep these realities in mind and be realistic. Like I said, you guys got to be super realistic when you're trying to decide what kind of policy, how much coverage you want to get, and the amount you should be paying. The reality is life insurance is not expensive. Permanent policies, yes, they're going to cost you a little bit more, because they do cover you for your entire life, but you can get a cheaper policy, a cheaper term policy, and have that coverage. But here's, like I said, if you set this up early enough, you don't have to worry about getting that sticker shock, because you already took care of it. You already got that policy in place. You already know you're financially able to support that policy. And you're not waiting until you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s trying to get a policy when your income is not going to allow you to do such a thing. The hardest age group right now to get on board with getting life insurance is that 35 and under, because they feel like they're invincible. But at the very least, like I said, they should at least have a $25,000 policy in place, so that if something happens to them, their families can bury them and not have to worry about it. And I talked to you guys before about living benefits, and I'm going to do another video on living benefits because I really want to go in depth on living benefits. But there's actually videos on YouTube that you can type in life insurance with living benefits, and you can watch those videos, and you can actually hear some testimonies from people, you know, telling you about how much having a policy with living benefits saved their life, saved their home, save their health, and just a bunch of different other things. So you guys, this is what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with the reality of too many people dying without life insurance. We're dealing with people who are very much uneducated when it comes to life insurance. And we're dealing with people who have unrealistic expectations when they try to get life insurance. So again, sitting down with somebody like myself, who will do a financial needs analysis with you, who will do a client worksheet with you, we can actually tell you how much life insurance you should have in place. And then we'll look to see if your finances can support that, and we'll scale it from there. You know, of course, you decide, you have the final say in the amount and what you're going to pay. But you always want to make sure that the policy you get, you'll know you'll be able to continue to pay for on a monthly basis, and you won't let that policy go because the policy itself has become a financial strain. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to put yourself in a financial bind with trying to get so much life insurance to leave behind, but you actually don't have the financial means to cover it. You want to make sure that you can afford that policy. And listen, this right here, I cannot stress to you guys enough when it comes to the realities of life insurance. For whatever reason, people, when they get into a financial bind, this is the very first thing, life insurance is the very first thing they'll let go. It's the very first bill that they will stop paying. Not realizing that life insurance is the only bill in your stack of bills that will literally pay off all your other bills. I would much rather, me personally, I would much rather stop paying for cable, stop paying for satellite radio, and stop paying my phone bill so that I can make sure that I can still pay for that life insurance. Because when the time comes, my cell phone bill, my cable, and my satellite radio is not going to pay to bury me. So I would much rather keep the one thing in place that I know is going to take care of that, my life insurance, as opposed to my wants. I would rather keep a need in place versus my wants to make sure that my family does not have to struggle when my time comes and I pass away. So these are some things too that we have to start putting in our minds mentally, is we have to get out of that selfish mindset of, I'm not going to worry about this because I'm not going to be here. But your loved ones are. And they are going to be completely devastated when something happens to you. And then on top of that, they are going to be completely devastated and worried and stressed with trying to figure out how to pay for your funeral. So like I said, at the very least, put a $25,000 policy on the books and keep paying on that. And then as you become more financially stable, increase your coverage amount. And then that way your family never has to struggle. So I'm going to, in some future videos, I'm going to get into talking about generational wealth. I'm going to show you some books that teach you how to use life insurance to create generational wealth. And I'm going to do a video on living benefits. And I will even talk to my fellow veterans, because I am a veteran, about VGLI, Veterans Group Life Insurance. And I'm going to break that down for them. And again, as time goes on, I will expand more and more about all the different kind of policies out there, and how they can benefit you, how you can use them to create wealth, and the importance of having a policy, the importance of having these conversations regularly with your family to make sure that your family is actually properly covered. These are all things that we need to be talking about. As much as we don't want to talk about or like to talk about them, we should be talking about these things regularly, because this is what's going to make sure that when the time comes, our families have peace of mind, and instead of worry, grief, and stress to come up with money to bury us. So like I said, today's video has really been about the realities of life insurance. And the reality is everybody needs a policy. I don't care whether they're newborn or, you know, they're seasoned and in their senior years, they still need a policy. Everybody needs a policy. Even if it's the minimum policy of, like I said, 25,000. Everybody needs a policy. Everybody in the family needs a policy, because here's why: it makes so much more sense to spend a life insurance company's money than anybody in the family having to empty out their savings account or having to do that GoFundMe or whatever means people come up with to put money together to bury somebody. This alleviates that. Life insurance alleviates that. And I'm going to get into so many other things on how to make sure that policies pay out, how to make sure that the death benefits get paid, and I'm going to break down accidental death policies. So, like I said, as time progresses, I'm going to do more and more videos covering different things. But today, again, the realities of life insurance. Everybody needs a policy, and you pay for it with cash, but you buy it with age, sex, health, and whether or not you smoke cigarettes. And yes, I'm going to say this again. Everybody needs a policy, for a permanent policy at that. Like I said, this is what's going to help create generational wealth for our families. If it's the bigger policy, if it's the smaller policy, it's going to keep families from having to stress about coming up with money to bury a loved one. So this has been my realities of life insurance video, and I want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click subscribe, and please share this video with your families. Love and light to you all.